should be in.
You should be good.
It's like once per year.
All right. We're officially live. All right. So let's wait for this to go because this is delayed. So that's how I know if it's actually going or not. All right, sweet. So welcome to part 4 of Team Race Strategy and Tactics. We are talking about the final beat. All right. So the first thing I want you guys to know about the final beat is as follows. I will bring up my PowerPoint again so you guys are aware of it. And then we want to go to slideshow. All right. So one of the most important things about going upwind on this last beat that I see all too often doesn't actually happen is first of a pair tacks. In some scenarios, we have certain schools, certain coaches that have their second pair tack. I think that's really dependent on whether or not you guys are actually, how far ahead you are, right? So in this scenario, I'm gonna have everyone pretty much bow to stern, starting with 2v2, because that makes things a lot easier. Once we get into 3v3s, you'd probably look at something like this, is what it would look like. But we're just gonna take those boats away for now, simplify this team racing for 2v2. So as you round this mark, there's a reason why this first boat tacks, and that is because they have a lot of leverage here, right? So as you're rounding this mark, this boat's going to tack out and extend a little bit, and you are not coming back until the next boat rounds. So we talk about pairs. You have boat 2 SSA, and then boat 2 broadneck here. That's your pair. And then for boat 3 here, you got pair on pair. So team racing is a lot about leverage, right? We talk about leverage all the time, and it's important to make sure you stay on top of your pairs. And this boat has a lot less leverage on this rounding than this boat on the boat directly behind it, right? So when this boat finally rounds, what's going to happen is boat 2 here is going to step right back. So now boat 2 is fully controlling the next broadneck boat 2 here. So you got SSA versus broadneck. Broadneck is coming up, and then this boat will round. And what's going to happen here is one of two things, depending on how this team is coached. You have another pair here. So as this boat rounds, he may either decide, I'm getting too far up this boat and I'm falling under him, because we had, similar roundings, right? So he's going to back out because this guy has clearer air. So he's going to tack out, and then you have this boat that's just going to stay on top of this boat. That's going to turn into what we talked about before, which is zone coverage. And I'm going to go back to stop sharing so you guys can kind of see this, and I'll go through it one more time so that you guys can see it on a full board. So for those of you who didn't see it on the full board, this boat here, we rounded, we tacked to clear your partner's air, your teammate's air. You want to make sure that's nice and clear for them just to sail fast because you're in a winning combination, let's say at this point. And you just want to make sure you're consolidating your points, right? So as boat 2 rounds, what they're very likely going to do, again, is tack. So if you had stepped and tacked when they rounded, they're going to tack, you're going to tack. This way, you have a nice loose coverage of them. And you may not be fully affecting them, right? But you're somewhat affecting them. And then you are just going to continue on, and your boat is probably going to be the course left. I don't know if you can see the green on here. If you can see the green, great. If not, I can change it. It doesn't look like you can see it on the screen. So we're going to change that to black. So this first boat that tacked becomes the course left boat. And this boat is eventually, depending on how this is set up, right? So if these guys are in the 1-2, say they're just launched up here, that boat is controlling, staying in the 1, staying on top of the 2. This boat's probably going to make sure he stays on course right So this boat becomes the course left boat. This boat will be, in this scenario, let's turn this off, get all this craziness out of here for you guys. Since I have people here, I'm going to ask audience questions too. So, those of you that are here, you have a pair over here on course right, you have a pair over here on course left, and then you have this pair. And the blue boats are in a winning combination right now, correct? So, the idea here is that boat 3 is now doing what to boat 1? Anyone in the crowd? Slowly. Hammering, yeah. Just make sure you stay on top because you do not, as I said in 1, 2, and probably 3, having the ace is super important, right? If you have the ace, you're very likely going to win the race. Good rhyme there. All right, so boat 3 is just going to make sure they stay on top of and with boat 1. So if boat 1 decides, what are you going to do if you're boat 1?
Try to get out of there, want to sit behind.
Yeah, you don't want to sit here and just let him just hammer you this whole time, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can, whether you're attacking, force, maybe you think that you have better boat handling them, force attacking battle, be able to get nose out. But what is the most important thing if you're a 6? What should you be doing? Do you bang a corner? Do you just kind of sail your own race? Stay in the race, follow the play. We like to call it following the play, right? So don't just be this boat that just rounds and is just like, I'm just going to bang the right corner and hope for the best, right? Because even if you get that right shift, you bang that corner, this person's going to be with you the whole time. You're going to attack, they're going to attack, and even if you've gotten a better shift, they're still on top of you. They still have that leverage. And if this boat now becomes the 5 and the 6, you have options here, right? We talked about it, dog, rabbit. Dog is slow, rabbit's fast. So if you feel like they've gotten too much of a piece of you with that shift, what you can do is just communicate with your team that you need some slowing down here, right? We're just now going to get rid of these 2 boats. So big shift, big right? But you still have the ace, right? So what you want to make sure that you're doing as the blue team is balancing this upwind, right? Balancing the upwind is really, really important. So in this scenario, you get a big shift and you realize that these 2 boats are crossing you. Does anyone in the peanut gallery understand what boat 1 is going to be attempting to do before the finish?
Tapping on boat 2 and probably the pass back.
Yeah, we're looking for a pass back, right? Heads up, okay, we're in a losing combination. We need to make something happen. The 1-2 is launched. Let's say we finish in the 2. Our only options are to play 2 at this point, right? 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 5. Both of those combinations win us race. So we need to unbalance this last pair. And again, like you see a lot in races at, I think more or less at the high school and probably at the Oppie races, the 1-2, they just go and finish. Not ideal, we can come back to that, but don't do that if you're the 1 or the 2, right? Stay in touch with the fleet. So these 2 are going to look, these 2 broadneck boats are going to look for a pass back scenario. So boat 1 is probably going to separate from boat 3 as boat 2 and boat 2 falling broadneck from the left side. Or SSA and broadneck come from the left side. Boat 1's going to look to tack and make a pass back happen, right? That is what you're looking to do to counter a big shift. But boat 3, your responsibility in this shift is 1, notice the shift. We talk about this in fleet racing, understanding shifts, all that fun stuff. Notice the shift, realize, oh, this guy might be in a bad scenario. We don't want to force a pass back scenario. We want to make this last heat really clean. So this guy's probably going to yell dog, right? Let's slow this pair down. And boat 3 is going to get in a position to make sure that they can luff their jib and give boat 1 some bad air. You give boat 1 some bad air, that shift oscillates right back, and now you're in a position of strength, right? So these guys get that shift back, These guys get that shift back, and as they come together, you probably have a cross here, and this boat's slowed down probably just a bit more. You have a bit of a cross here, and you are now in a position to win this race in a 1-3-4, right? Now, I want to talk a lot more about unbalancing, because that is probably the main portion of team racing, right? So we're going to share this for you guys. Anyone online can see this. So, two different philosophies as you're going into this last beat. Let's say we're in a similar position here. So let's put the broad neck boats. Let's switch this. So we're talking about unbalancing, right? We're saying the SSA boats are spread. Let's call this, these guys finished, let's say reverse order, 1, 2, right? So the Broadneck team right now has the win. They're in a play for it, right? Play for it. 1, 4, 5. Not a very great play, right? Super unstable. It's really easy to make these two boats slow as you round this mark, because you have this guy here, and hopefully they do this right. But unbalancing, one of the first things I'd like to say about unbalancing is stay away from ley line if you're a losing team. Why do we want to stay away from ley line? Well, if you have a winning team and you just decide at mark 4 that, hey, we're not going to win this. So these two go, right? We talked about this before. First of a pair tacks. So this is a pair. Broadneck's going to tack first. Hopefully this guy recognizes this scenario and can tack back on him. These guys send it out to ley line. These guys send it out to ley line. And if this boat doesn't do a good job of pinning, right? This boat doesn't close this gap and keep him from actually tacking on this ley line. If he gives him space, he's going to be able to just tack on ley line. He may cover, but hey, guess what? He's got all of that room to just put his bow down and aim right at the boat and go to the finish, right? Same concept here. He's winning his pair. He's going to go to ley line. If you don't force him off of that, he's just going to sit here and rag on you all day long and keep doing the 6. Not ideal. You're just giving them the win at that point, because regardless of what you do, you don't have any more tacks left. You don't have any more leverage on the fleet to keep them from actually making something happen on this final beat, which is not ideal. Team races are never over until you guys cross the finish line. There's a lot of different plays you can make, but staying away from ley lines is number 1, okay? If you can keep this boat and this boat away from ley line, or if you can keep these two boats away from ley line in this scenario, you're giving yourself every opportunity to what we call unbalance this fleet, right? So these guys are going to round, and then you're going to have your fast pair and your slow pair, okay? So your fast pair is going to be the pair that just focus on boat speed. Let's go to boat speed. Let's make sure that we're taking in things around us. Cruise roll, make sure that you're communicating with the skipper what's going on. Skipper is your focus on boat speed, boat speed, boat speed. And your second boat is your slow boat, right? So this guy's going to tack, this guy's going to tack. These guys are going to extend. And now the losing combo is the blue team, right? We just talked about this. These guys finish in, Broadneck finish in the 1, these guys finish in the 2. So the only way that the blue team can win is a play 2 at this point. So I would make sure that the slow pair is probably this pair, your first 2 pairs, right? So, or actually, I take that back. I would make it this pair because this boat is not gonna just tack with boat 2, right? In this general scenario, if boat 2 tries to do a tacking battle, it's just not gonna work, right? This boat's gonna tack, this guy's gonna say, oh, thank you for the clean air, sail the ley line, and be done. Not ideal. You could, if you're boat 2 and you wanna be the slow pair because you know that maybe your teammate that's in the 6 just doesn't have the boat speed or the boat handling yet, and you just want to focus on getting them through and make them do as minimal tacks and maneuvers as you possibly can, right? So maybe you luff on them, which is going to force them to tack, which then you slam them, right? We talked about loose cover versus tight cover. In this scenario, when you're unbalancing, you're just slamming. Every opportunity you get, you're slamming, all right? So this boat tacks, you tack, you continue ragging on them. That's going to force them to do what? They're going to tack. You're going to pull in your sails, do another tack, slam them again. Meanwhile, this boat is hopefully just pushing this boat, right? And then when he sees that he's on the same ladder rung, we talked about upwinds as ladder rungs, everyone knows that, yes? So I'm going to draw them on the board just so everyone online can see it too. So we have ladder rungs of a race course. And the minute you put yourself on the same ladder rung as your teammate, you're now looking to bring your pairs back together, okay? So we're now on the same ladder rung, and this boat is going to initiate this because they're the fast pair. They want to bring it back. They're like, okay, I got a piece of him now. So he's going to initiate the tack. He's probably going to follow. He's going to tack, and he's going to tack. Now, when you bring this back, you are now in a position where you now have a piece of this guy. So, and this boat is now fully crossing this boat. So if we play this out, this boat has 2 options. They can either duck to potentially get that starboard advantage coming back to the finish, or they can leave out, right? And that's depending on what you want to do. If you're comfortable in your tacks and your dives and you want to be able to tack underneath him, you can. I prefer, if I'm this boat, I prefer a duck in this scenario because it's giving me starboard and leverage, right? So when I come back, I am starboard boat. So I prefer a duck towards the end of a beat in any scenario, so you race some more team racing. Towards the end of the top of the beat, I'm always looking to get to starboard ley line because I know I'm going to have rights coming into the finish or a mark, right? So you have those 2 options, but now you put them in a really bad situation, right? Because if this boat ducks, he's now the 6. So, okay, what's going to happen here? This boat ducks, he's clearly the 6. This boat has options. Not many, but they have a couple options. If you want to make sure that this race continues, this is now going to need to be a pin, right? Because you do not want this boat ahead of this boat at this particular moment. And the only way that you're going to avoid that is to make sure he can't tack to finish, right? And then this boat is now going to have 2 options as well. My favorite option is, okay, you've now had this duck. If he's a little bow and you see this pinning happen, I am coming over and I'm slamming and I'm doing a front door pass back. If this boat decides he's not going to pin for whatever reason, and he's just going to let him have this little bit of gap here, you can just cross and just loose cover this boat that's out to the right to make sure that they don't get that right hand leverage if there's a shift. And then this boat is just going to focus on being able to get fast enough where they can tack and make this lay, right? So we've got 2 different lay lines coming off the boat. you may want to go a little further. You could always go to the pin lay line too, but the goal is to be able to have this tack and be able to either duck him and still make lay line, or if you are good enough and you can boat speed this boat on your hip, be able to just tack and cross that and finish the race, right? And in that case, you are now, this boat's out to 6, this boat's going to the lay line and tacking, this boat's probably going to have to tack short of lay or potentially go past him, but there's no passing lane there anymore. So you've now funneled them, unbalanced them, and then taken advantage of whatever leverage you may have on the race course. I know I threw a lot at you right there, but that's your final beat. That's the concept of unbalancing. I'll kind of go through this again real quick. Not the same concept, but similarly, I think the most important key concept to understand is if you're in a losing combo, don't just give up on the race at the bottom of the mark. I think it's really, really important as a team. Like this scenario here. I've seen this scenario turn into a brown boat win. Okay, just because they didn't give up and these guys kind of lollygagged up that last beat and ended up just getting unbalanced. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have starboard advantage up here, or you're in a position where you're leading to this port hand lay line, right? If you're not leading to the port tack lay line, for example, let's talk about that. So if you're not leading out to that port tack lay line, you're behind, and you want to make something happen over here, right? Let's say we got maybe some of this going on here. All right, so and let's put that other lay line here. Great. So let's put, we got, if you're the broad neck team here and you're not leading here, this guy's going to step on the lay line, and then you have 2 options. Okay. One option, tap on his hip, and you're not finishing before them. Second option, tap before them, and now you're looking for this boat, your teammate, to be able to make some play happen here, right? Starboard tack, right? So as they're coming into this top beat, let's give the sails a little better option here. So this boat has 2 options here, and one of the options is a really, really bad option. And that bad option is tacking, okay? You tacking here is going to solidify the blue team win because you're not passing anyone. There's no lanes, and this guy is just going to go to lay line. This guy may be able to force him to tack here. If this blue boat is on pin lay line, I'm ducking. If you're on pin lay line, you should never be tacking for a starboard tack boat. You should always be looking to duck on the pin lay line to the finish. Okay? If you at any point are here and you decide to tack, that race is over. You're done.
Yeah, one more time.
Tack. This part?
Yeah, the part right before it.
What, this one?
Yeah.
So if you tack here, you basically, if you're on pin lay line, don't tack. That's kind of the moral of the story here. This boat wants to duck. This boat wants to duck. Because if you tack here as this boat, this guy's just going to hold you out as long as he wants. He's just going to pin you, and he's going to hope, even if this boat decides, okay, I'm going to slam him, you're still above the boat lay line, right? So worst comes to worst, he's going to pin you out until this happens, and this guy, right, he has to give you the room to finish at this point, right? Once you get to here, you're not allowed to hit the committee boat. That's an obstruction. He's going to have to let you finish. You can just, honestly, I see this happen a lot where this boat doesn't want to do anything. This boat's allowed to go head to wind here. They have left and rights. They tacked into that, right? So you can luff head to win right there, basically, and have no issues. But the worst thing you can do if you're on pin lay line is tack. So you have two starboard tackers coming at you. This boat is going to look to duck as these two come in. Stay. This boat is going to look to duck. This boat's going to look to duck. Right? And in this scenario, if I'm the brown boat, I know he's ducking. You see his bow come down. He doesn't have any other option. And I'm actually going to leave out here. Because you can leave out, you're tacking into overlap. That's giving you luffing rights. He's not going to be able to hit you, and you can just shoot straight up and hang out there as long as you want. And if this boat tacks on you here, you can just take him close haul, finish the race. Hopefully this guy's got some good boat handling, can put his bow down and just finish before this guy can get accelerated and go. Generally, most of the time, this boat on the right-hand side, it has the advantage because they're initiating the turn down for the acceleration. So most of the time, this guy's watching this guy's tiller. As soon as he goes over, he's going to go over, but then he's just going to squeeze here. He has to give him enough room to finish, ideally. So you can't push him into the mark here, but he can kind of just make his life a little miserable, and hopefully this boat can just shoot up and finish the race. See a lot of races end like that, right? But I see a lot of people mess this up where the brown team and the blue team see these starboard tack boats. They do a little bit of panicking scenario, and they're like, oh, tacking. And then they tack, and then this is game over, right? There's no chance. This blue team is probably going to win because he's tacked. He's not really going to have any option to pin, so he's going to have to tack. Even if he goes to lay line, this guy's got this guy pinned. He's going to have to tack eventually. He's going to tack. He's going to start the tack first, and then he's going to end up here. And now you have that scenario going into that top end, right? So unbalancing is the name of the game. The biggest thing biggest thing of advice I can give you on that final beat is staying away from that lay. Without staying away, if you just send it straight to lay line in a 3v3, you're just going to be in a really poor situation. Because first of a pair is going to attack, second pair is going to go upwind. Next, first of a pair is this guy's going to probably come as soon as he tacks. He's going to tack. He's going to tack. And now you have this scenario. So now you're in the 3v3. Staying away from lay line. I know we like to see what we actually like to do. So we're in a 3v3. The brown team is in a 1-2-5. Yeah, and then the blue team is in a 2-3-6. This is what we like to. This is what we see a lot in team racing. A lot in our high school type things. I'm sure you guys probably see this in some Opti stuff too when you go to Opti team racing, where this is still well in hand, right? But if these two boats don't make an attempt to get these two boats unbalanced, and unbalanced just means that when you bring these two back, they're going to have to make a decision on whether they're going to tack off of each other or if they have to duck or cross each other, right? If you can get them to meet here and force a bounce, and one of them is clearly not crossing, the next thing that you're looking to do is, okay, we're going to tack, they're going to tack, and we're going to extend, and then as soon as we feel like we're getting close to lay line, boom, we're both coming back, boom, they're both coming back, and now we're in a scenario where, they're in a really bad situation, right? These guys are probably chasing the play, right? If they're doing the right thing. So these two are coming up the middle, just kind of chasing the play, staying in touch, right? And then these guys have a decision to make. If he ducks, you know you have them unbalanced. You know there's a chance that you can make a play here. So if he has to duck, Now you're in a scenario where he's just going to take a nice little stern here. I would probably say this boat's tacking, just not to avoid this boat. He's going to go with him. And now, coming back, right, before you hit lay line, you're tacking. They're going to slam you. You're tacking. They're tacking. And now, you're in this position, which is a much stronger position than where you just were, right? So now you're in a 2, 3, 6, right? And this is where the fun part comes in, where you're going to do everything in your power to be super aggressive in your team racing skills, because you don't have much time at this point in the team race to make something happen. You just don't. So you got to be super aggressive. So this is where a lot of umpire calls come in. This is where a lot of really good communication comes in, and knowing your team comes in, right? So this guy, chestnut checkers, right? We all have the same playbook for the most part. Some coaches teach the man-on-man. Some coaches teach the, zone coverage, which I prefer zone coverage. I think it's simpler. I think it's easier to understand, and I think it gives you a lot more leverage across the race course. But this is a scenario where, what do we think boat one's going to do here if they're a really good, really experienced team racer? Any idea?
Leave out boat 3.
Leave out. We just talked about port tack, right? What are you guys going to do? Duck. Yeah, we're going to duck, right? Ducking. But you're not wrong. Many people do the leave out, which is not the move here, right? Because this boat has all the rights in the world. If you leave out them, guess who's going to get pinned? Boat one is. And the only options you have at that point are 2 options. You have luffing rights, so you can force them to go head to wind, but they're just going to sit there. If they're a good team racer, they're just going to sit here. And again, who's going to have the advantage on the barrel way to the finish? The inside boat's going to have every opportunity to win that pair as you guys are head to wind. But this boat, likely, if they're top team, good team racing, is going to look for a duck here. But if you're boat 3, and that's the same numbers, there's a fun little dial down rule in team racing, isn't there? And you are the starboard tack boat. So, as you know what's going to happen, you're just going to put your bow down. Because as soon as you put your bow down, if you beat him to the bow down, he's going to have no choice. If he decides he wants to go bow down, you're just going to match him all the way down, and you can just do that. If you've beaten him to this bow down, you are not fouling. If he beats you to the bow down, what happens in the rules is if he beats you here, and then you make a move with your boat that forces this port tack boat to immediately alter their course, red flag to this boat. So you need to have some situational awareness in the team racing, understanding, okay, am I racing a team that's going to put their bow down and try and get to the right of me? With certain teams, yeah, that's exactly what they're going to do, because they know if they tack here, they're not going to win this pair, right? So you're going to just bow down with them, and they're going to have one of 2 options, and that's either going to be to jibe or to foul you, right? And fouling, spinning, they're probably in the 6.
Okay, so if boat 1 puts their bow down before boat 3 does, boat 3 loses their rights.
Not that they lose their rights.
Or,
They can dial them down to an extent, but they can't force boat 1 to make an immediate maneuver to make an avoidant action. So that's how the rules written. In match racing, you could go all the way down. It's a little different in match racing. In team racing, boat 3 needs to beat boat 1 to that bow down.
Okay.
And if you do beat them, and you're this brown boat, you got tack. Like, it's your really only option. So if you beat them to this bow down, and they're like, oh, I can cross now. No, you can't. No, you can't. Because they're just going to kind of come up to their proper course again, and they're still starboard boat. So you have to tack in that scenario. And now you're pinned, and now they're hoping that their boat did a good job of staying with the picture. I prefer my 6 to make sure they're coming in on starboard tack lay line at the end of the race, ideally. So when they come out, hopefully they're here, and this boat is clearly on lay line. Let's take this away. So even if this boat's luffing, this guy can just kind of put his bow down and just get to the pin. And even be in a situation where if this boat starts to feel like they're losing this boat, if they put their bow down towards the pin, this guy probably going to finish and take the 1 and hope that their teammate can pull out some sort of play 4 scenario, right? But this guy is just going to stay in touch, make sure that these guys are okay. If he starts to lose them, he's going to tack out. This boat is probably going to tack with him. And look at that. You got an extra teammate here to help you out. Make sure you get a little bump here. And then this guy can't really do much else all the way to lay line. They could shoot up, but they still got to give this boat room to finish. So you're in a really good scenario here. This boat is going to have nothing to do. Maybe they'll say, okay, I need room to duck. This guy's going to slam him. Probably left their sails, and then this guy's going to be probably called starboard if he even gets close to him, but probably not. They're going to tack into finish. They're probably going to slam into finish, and then this guy's going to finish here, and it's probably going to be a 1-5-6 for the broadneck team and a 2-3-4 for the SSA team. That's kind of how imbalancing works. You just want to force this team that's leading to have a little bit of panic. And maybe bait them into over team racing, right? Because we get into team racing mode and we're like, we just want to hunt for people. We just want to play the game. We want a team race. And if you watched our first couple parts, you don't need a team race all the time, right? Sometimes fleet racing on a team race course is better. You can outboat speed some people. You can just find the shifts, right? So you do want to have team racing in your head, but you also want to make sure that you don't get baited into something like what we just saw. And all of a sudden you're in this tackling duel with somebody and, oh my God, I went from a 1-2 around Mark 4 to a 1-3. And now we're in a really big hole because now we're looking at a bunch of pass backs and having to do a lot more work, right? And now this other team generally has the advantage. The team that's done the unbalancing, generally the other team that gets unbalanced is super frazzled. And so they're going to start to make a little bit more mistakes unless they're a very seasoned team that's been in this situation before. And then it's just a dogfight to the finish. And sometimes these races are really close. You got all 6 boats putting their bows into the wind to finish the race. But I think the biggest takeaway from this last beat is really just understanding that the race isn't over until everyone's across the finish line. Obviously, there are scenarios where maybe you just have a really bad start and they're just launching a 1-2 and they're a leg ahead. And yeah, maybe the race is over at that point. But if you're even close to being in touch with people, team racing isn't over until it's over. And it's really important to understand that. I've seen a lot of teams come back from a 4-5-6 on a final beat. So it's not insane to say that you're still in the race if you're in that scenario. It's just making sure. What I've also seen is the team gets too fleet racy. I watched this happen to one of our teams in the past couple of years. Is, oh my God, the right is so favored, and you just see this train out here to the right, and this team just says, okay, I'm gonna go left, I'm gonna go left, and I'm gonna go right. That probably changes a little bit so you're not in dead air, right? And then that righty comes back, and now this team's back in it. So it's really important not to get too fleet racy with it and have your entire team. So we talk about covered zones. So you have your middle left and right. So I break the course like this. And so you got your left, right, and then the middle. Generally, no one plays right up the middle. They're kind of left of right, or wow, there's a T. They're usually left of middle or right of middle, but generally not all the way up the middle, because you do want to try and boat speed. If you're playing up the middle, you could just do too many taps and just kind of sail yourself out of the race. But if you are playing the middle and it's been a consistent, persistent right shift, right? Okay, it's just kind of always doing a little bit of right, always doing a little bit of right, always doing a little bit of right. If you're that middle zone boat, I would stick towards that right side, right? That middle right. That way you're constantly staying on the leverage side of the course. Same concept with the left. If the left is a little more favored most of the day, hey, I'm going to stay more left middle in terms of my covered zones. So yeah, the first boat may be the boat that's protecting the right, and the second boat may be the boat taking the left, and then the third boat is kind of playing that middle left. Even if this guy was in the one, I want everyone to get out of their minds winning the races and everything in team racing, right? You don't want to run away with the one. It's just not a good deal. I see teams do that, and then it's a 3-on-2 for the rest of the race. And that is not fun. So my rule of thumb that I teach is you want to stay probably within 6 to 8 boat lengths of the next boat behind you, and stay within touch of your fleet, right? So if you're launched in the one, don't just la-di-da sail your way up the race course and finish in the one and while your team's in a 5-6, right? You're not giving them much of a chance. Oh yeah, I got the first, coach. Yeah, but we just lost in a 1-5-6. So why does that matter that you just got the one? Oh, well, I'm fast. I should sail A division, right? No, that's not how that works. It's a completely different race course, a completely different model, right? So even if you're in the one and your responsibility is course right, don't just take it and run with it. You get this big righty, and the best thing I've seen is this boat, they get this big righty, and this guy just wants to stay in touch with the fleet. So I'm kind of dogging in this scenario. I definitely don't want this guy to finish. Don't want this guy to finish ahead of me. I still want to take the one. So I'm just kind of slow playing it, making sure that my team stays in touch as they come back over to me. And then if you start to get up to the top and both of you are really out of touch and you got this scenario going on, maybe it's a little more like this, I guess. Let's make sure that we're kind of in a scenario where it can kind of go either way. If you're the blue boat, you can force him to finish potentially. And I would try to do that if I was a second place boat, because now I can have 3-on-2 myself. Or just stop. This person's going to stop probably with you. Shoot head to wind. Just wait and kind of see how things develop, right? Don't lose flow. You don't want to be like sailing backwards, right? Because that's not ideal. If you're sailing backwards, you have no rights. But park it, sit there, wait for this fleet to get back in touch with you. And if you need to make a pass back happen, you have the opportunity to make the pass back happen. Sitting up here after you finish and yelling at your team to do X, Y, and Z is never going to work out for you or your team, right? Also, pretty sure umpires frown upon that. So don't do that. Don't finish the race and then yell at your team to tap, jive, do whatever. First of all, you're distracting them from now a position that you put them in. And second of all, just it's obnoxious when you've now left your two teammates to kind of take on a 3-on-2. And now you're in a position of, okay, now I'm just watching this guy. Okay, I'm going to go for a pass back over here. All right, that's done. Boom. Now let's move on. If this guy's now gotten ahead of this guy, now this guy's going to hammer him. This guy's probably going to sail over here. Boom, make that pass back happen. And now you're finishing in a play 2 for the blue team. Right? It just makes things a lot easier when you have an extra boat on the race course. So if you get away from people, this is on every single leg, even this leg here. If you're launched as you're coming downwind, don't just round and keep going. You're in an advantage position. You can set mark tracks. You can condense the race if you're losing, but never just run away. Always stay in touch. My rule of thumb is 6 to 8 boat lengths within the next pair that's with you. That way you can get your acceleration going if you are stopped, and you can make sure that your team is still in a position to win the race. Let's see, what else we got? Just talked about that. But let's put it on the screen for those of you that are watching. Winning combo. Don't get forced into attacking battle. Stay in your pair and ask for help if you need it. Just all too often you see, a winning combo. I kind of just showed a couple different ways that a winning combo can blow it. But as a winning combo, it's just about just staying disciplined and what you know about team racing. And that is, if you're a winning combo and you're loose covering the fleet, don't get sucked into attacking battle. Don't get sucked into, these weird unbalancing techniques that people are showing that are trying to bait you into doing, right? It's just really, really an easy way. Like, this should be a simple rounding, right? It should be simple as, okay, we're in 1, 2, 3, they're in 2, 3, or 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5, 6. We're rounding. First of a pair attacks. Second goes. Third comes around. This guy's gonna come back. This guy rounds. This guy's gonna attack to get off his air, and you're gonna lose cover, right? There is no world in which this should get unbalanced, but it does all the time. Because this boat says, all right, I want to keep you away from this ley line, so let's tack here. And then this boat does the over team racing thing, and boom, slams. Okay, fine, you don't want him to go right. That's okay, you don't want right hand leverage. Okay, with a slam tack to start, and then he goes back. You're like, oh, he's got to go, we got to slam him again. Boom, slam him again. All right, he's now gained quarter boat length on you. All right, he sees you finish your tack, boom, I'm right back. Oh crap, I don't want him to get that right hand leverage. Slam him back. He's now bow to shroud with you. Okay? This guy is doing the right thing. He's like, I'm just gonna get to ley line attack. Got starboard advantage. I'm winning my pair. I don't want to go. I don't want to get tied into all this fast pair, loose pair stuff. And this guy goes one more time. Boom, tack, boom, slam. He has a bad tack. Boom, boat one's bow. Unbalanced. Just like that. Right? So don't get sucked into this. Understand you don't have to slam, 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 slam. You just need to make sure that you're ahead of them by the time you get to the finish. Right? So even if he tacks, remember, you have 3 boats on the race course, right? So if there's any scenario where this guy's coming back, first of all, let's think about this for a second. You have a right-hand boat protecting the right. If he wants to go right after doing 5 tacks, he's not going to be behind him. This guy's going to be ahead, right? And starboard tack boat. So he goes to ley line, tacks. All of a sudden, this guy's over here. Okay, this guy's still following. All right. Maybe you loose covered him. So maybe you're here. Instead of slamming him, you just loose covered. He doesn't have much of an option. He can either maybe, honestly, he's probably even more closer here. And this guy's probably here. He doesn't have many options here. You can't just tee up the starboard tack boat. That's a black flag. He's going to be DSQ from the race, and blue's just going to walk away with the win. So he's either going to duck or tack, and he's on ley line, so he can just put bow down. And then this guy can just kind of leave out on the way back. And when he has bad air from this boat and kind of some swirlies from this boat, as they kind of lose it, they're just going to slide sideways, and this boat's never going to be a threat. All right. This is why I like the zone coverage. It gives the opportunity for that boat not to get too drawn in to attacking battle or to a side battle, because you know your responsibility. Okay, I'm course left here. I'm just going to make sure that I, protect my course left, and I'm going to make sure that I'm loose covering on the way back. But I see far too often the slam, 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 slam. Now this boat's bow out, and now we have a race on our hands. It's just not ideal. Don't overdo it. Don't overthink it. Don't outthink team racing. It's pretty It's complicated, but it's also pretty simple if you understand where your zones are, where your plays are. If you read your playbook that your coach gives you, there's very specific instructions on what you're supposed to do on certain plays. Like what's the 4 supposed to do in this scenario? What's the 2 supposed to do in this scenario? Most coaches have that in their playbook, right? So if you're in a 1, 2, 5, what's the 5's plan there most of the time? Feel free to answer. If you're in a 1, 2, 5, what's your 5 going to do? Keep the ace, just slam the 6, right? That's all you got to do. If you lose the ace and they're in a 1, 2, it's pretty much game over, right? Like it is what it is. Don't lose the ace. Not ideal, but like if you're slamming him and just keeping him in the back, like there's no way they're going to be able to put themselves in really a winning combination if 1 and 2 stay on their zones and stay loose covered and make sure that they just get to their lay lines. The unbalancing really comes from a team that is over anxious about team racing more than anything. Or maybe they just have one good tack that's a little better, and now they're like, oh crap, we got to scramble, we got to dog, we got to do whatever. Lack of communication can unbalance you as a pair. There's lots of things that can turn into an unbalance if you're not disciplined in your team racing abilities. So with that, I think that is all in terms of my final beat. And I'll show everyone this picture because this is from Ted Morgan. It's just a really cool picture. So I figured I'd throw it out there. Hopefully it'll come up on our screen in a second. But it's some team racing. It hasn't been coming up on our TV sometimes, but it's a cool little picture of some team racing going on. So yeah, I can see it on my screen, but I can't see it on this screen for some reason. Don't know why. But yeah, so I'm going to actually go back. We have about a lot less time than I thought we were going to have to. Oh, there you go. Now you can see it. So I'm going to kind of just go over any kind of scenarios that anyone has that's watching or anyone that's here that they just kind of want to talk through, whether it's start first beat to mark 2, downwind to mark 4, or final beat. So I'm going to open the floor to scenarios, questions, or anything that you guys may want to go over about team racing that may be unclear that you maybe want some more coverage on.
One quick thing.
Yeah, go for it.
You're in a 1, 2, like you round mark 4 and 1, 2, 5, and 5 is the ace, so now you're in a 1, 2, 6. Do you just want to run away with the 1, 2 if you can? Like, if your 1, 2 are close to the 3 and 4, like, what's your play? Do you go and try to get the ace again, or do you just run away with it?
So there's a couple trains of thought in this scenario. So the question, if you guys didn't hear it online, is if you're in a 1, 2, 6, rounding mark 4, are you looking to just run away with the 1, 2, or are you looking to try and play back a little bit to get the 6 through? I think the main thing here is kind of like depth and where everybody is on the race course. I want to stay on top of my pair for sure. So I'm making sure that both of my, don't forget the first of a pair tack scenario, tacking out. He's probably going to tack out here too, very likely. And you're now covering him. And I honestly am just saying, okay, let's just make sure that these two pairs are on the same page at all times. So I have my crew actively looking, or if I'm the crew, I'm actively looking at my pair, actively keeping an eye on my ladder rungs, making sure that we're not getting unbalanced, making sure there's not shifts happening that's going to put us in a really, because this is not the most stable scenario, right? Because all it takes is this pair or this pair to have one mistake, and all of a sudden you're going 3, right? And then, okay, now we have a bit of a game on our hands here. So I'm making sure that we are in touch and we're on the same page. And just loose covering, not getting sucked into tacking battles. And if you have a lift, let's say boat 2 gets a lift over here as these guys are kind of sailing away, I'd be mentioning that to this boat here, right? And in this scenario, I'm fleet racing as the top 2 boats. If this guy's really far away, I'm definitely more focused on fleet racing. I definitely want him following the play. So if you're this 6 in this scenario, follow the play, try what you can to maybe get down out on this boat at some point in the upwind just to kind of give yourself some breathing room. But this is a fleet race in my opinion as a coach, and I always want to be on the lift attack. So if this boat starts to get lifted, I'm communicating that to my boat, and I'm making sure that he's on that lift attack. So, okay, boom, we're lifted. Okay, he's going to continue to send it out. You're sailing the lift attack for a little bit of time. And now, okay, I just want to make sure I can get back in touch with him. As soon as he tacks, I'm tacking. And then I'm forcing, and I may be sailing a slight header, but I've now sailed the lift attack for longer than this boat, right? He wants to sail away from me and force me to do something. So if you're on the lift attack, he's going to be on the head attack. That's just how it's going to go. This boat wants to separate, or this boat wants to separate. So if you two are constantly on the lift attack, these boats are never going to catch you by separating, right? Unless they get way over here and you get this crazy big lefty and all of a sudden he's launched. But that's so far in between. So I say in this scenario, if everything's condensed and close, I'm kind of fleet racing here and focusing staying on lift attack. Because these guys they have to do everything they can to get away from that. So I'm forcing, okay, you're going to sail on the head attack. I'm going to sail on the lift attack. And then I want to make sure he doesn't get too far away. So if I feel like he's maybe getting a little too far away from me and I'm getting a little out of touch with him, I'm just going to come back and make sure that I got a piece of him still. And even if he's gained a little bit, when he goes back on port tack, he has 2 options again, right? I can dump this person or I can leave out this person. Honestly, if you leave out and you've sailed the lift attack, it's not really going to be a leave out. So it's like, okay, he's going to try to duck you. And then honestly, I just slam him here because you're not just pushing him past ley line and you're just off the races, right? So I think in that scenario specifically, I'm looking to just sail the lift attack as the top 2 boats. You have the first around, just attack and clear yourself so you're not giving the second boat around bad air. Just let them sail clean. If the port tack ends up being a lift attack, I'm communicating that with boat 2 here, and I'm making sure that they get on the lift attack, but not giving up too much right-hand leverage, right? So I would, if right-hand attack is lifted, all of these ley lines get a lot deeper, right? So instead of having like, say, your ley lines initially are here and here, if you get the lift attack on starboard, your ley lines are now maybe there and there, right? That's a little wonky, but your ley lines come in. So if you're lifted there, boom, okay, I'm probably laying a pin. He can't, unless it's super skewed, but team race finish lines are generally about 6 boat lengths. So you're not going to get an excessively favored boat or an excessively favored pin there. So if you're on one of these ley lines, your game's over too, right? So I think the biggest thing in that scenario, in a 1-2-6, if they're in touch, you don't have to overdo it. If they're deep and you start to get unbalanced, it gets a little sketchy. But I would just say sail on the lift attack is the biggest takeaway from one of those scenarios. Anything else? Any other scenarios you've been involved in that you guys want to go over? I know some of you guys get me basically every single day of the week starting next week, so you can hold your questions to then, but anything confusing that you want me to re-go over or anything like that? You feel pretty confident in what we talked about? Oh, we have a question. What are some of the most important things that a crew has to do? Communicate, a lot of communication. The skipper really needs to be heading the boat in team racing, in my opinion, because when they're really far head out of the boat, they have really bad speed issues. So as a crew, you're kind of giving them everything. You're giving them, okay, we're winning 2 pairs. Oh, we're losing 2 pairs. The right looks, favored. This is a boat that's going to be an issue for us when we come to a mark. Anything you can paint a picture for a skipper, kind of like in fleet racing, and then just be prepared for anything. Skippers in team racing just tack. Skippers in team racing just jive. Like they just do it. There's no countdown I know some of you guys are used to a countdown in fleet racing. I know I teach that for our fleet racers. Make sure you're counting down every tack so that this crew knows when to roll and be ready for it. And you're not just randomly tacking and your crew's not ready for it. In team racing, there's no, I'm gonna tack in 3 seconds. It's, we need to tack now and I'm doing it and you better be ready for it. Same thing with jives. Boom, jive, 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 jive. I've been in a team race where we've jived probably 20, 30 times on a downwind. And there's no rhyme or reason why. It's mostly, okay, we gotta break this overlap. Okay, now we gotta come back down and make sure that we stay on this side of the zone. Like I wanna be starboard coming back into Mark III. Like we're gonna jive 5 more times because they're gonna keep jiving at us. Like if you're not prepared and on your toes all the time as a crew, it's gonna be really difficult to have good boat handling and do well in team racing. So the crew is everything in team racing. If you have bad boat handling, you're just not going to be a good team racer. If you have bad communication skills, you're just not going to do well in team racing. It's just super, super important that you understand that tacking on the whistle is good, jiving on the whistle is good. Getting your footwork and your boat handling in tune is so important to team racing. That needs to be second nature for you. You can't be thinking, oh, I gotta put my foot here and there and then cross here and do that. It's like, it's instant and it's all the time. So I think that's a really important part of being a crew, as well as making sure you're telling the skipper where the pops and the shifts are, just like in fleet racing. But I think it's a lot more on your toes and a lot more information constantly be getting pushed into the skipper's head. Because the skipper's to head out of the boat, you're in a really bad position on the race course. You get put in a really bad position on the race course. All right, anything else? I'm 2 minutes over time actually, which I was not expecting with this one. I know we went over a lot of unbalancing in a few different scenarios, but I will let y'all go. Thank you again for doing this. Tomorrow is trivia here. Trivia is not online, so you guys need to be here for trivia if you want to be part of it. Maddie is the quiz master. And then our office manager, Kathy, is going to be bartending / emceeing, and I will be there as well, either playing for the S.M.A.R.T fleet or potentially emceeing as well. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, trivia tomorrow. It's one of our favorite S.M.A.R.T series events of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed this and got a lot out of it. It will be on our SSA YouTube for the time being. So if you guys want to come back and re-watch these, because I know they're an hour long and not all of you want to watch for an hour straight. If you want to just watch in bits and pieces, this will be all posted to SSA's YouTube page under the 2025 S.M.A.R.T series. So if you're part of the SSA team that's practice high school here, you're just going to get sent that link. If you're not, it's totally available. You can email me for it as well. So we'll make sure that gets out to anybody in the next week or so that wants it. So thank you again, and we'll see you guys soon.